My body was failing, but what truly shattered me weren't the whispers of nurses, but my husband's icy command, "Give them to a shelter. I'm done caring." The sound that will forever haunt me isn't the doctor's grim prognosis or the sympathetic whispers of nurses. It's the methodical zip of a suitcase, a sound that echoed through our too-quiet house, each tooth of the zipper clicking into place like a countdown to the end of my world. I was propped up on the living room couch, a mountain of pillows failing to ease the dull, persistent ache in my bones. Each breath was a shallow, rattling thing, a constant reminder that my body was failing me. The chemo had stolen my hair, my strength, and my appetite, but I thought it couldn't steal my husband. I was wrong. Mark stood in the doorway, the large black suitcase at his feet. He was wearing his good coat, the one he wore to client meetings, not the worn-out jacket he used for running errands. He looked like a man heading to the airport, not a man whose wife was supposed to have, at best, 6 months left. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. They flitted around the room, landing on the framed photos on the mantelpiece, our wedding, the birth of our children, family vacations where the sun seemed to shine just for us. It was like he was looking at ghosts. "Mark?" I whispered. My voice was a dry rasp. "What are you doing?" He finally looked at me, and the coldness in his eyes made me shiver. This wasn't the man who had held my hand through every scan, every treatment. This was a stranger. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any emotion. "I can't watch you fade away. I need to live my life." The words were like slaps to the face. Live his life? What about our life? What about the vows we took, in sickness and in health? I guess there was a fine print I'd missed. Tears I didn't have the energy to shed burned behind my eyes. I gestured weakly towards the hallway where the faint sound of cartoons and childish giggles could be heard. Our 7-year-old twins, Lily and Tom, were in their playroom, blissfully unaware that their world was being dismantled. "And them?" I asked, my voice cracking. "What about our children, Mark? What am I supposed to do?" He took a deep breath, the kind a man takes before delivering a final fatal blow. He picked up his suitcase, the leather handle creaking under the weight of his new life. "That's not my problem anymore." I stared at him, my mind refusing to process the monstrousness of what he was implying. "Not your... Mark, they are your children. You can't just leave them." My voice rose, a pathetic, reedy shriek. And that's when he said it. The words that shattered the last remaining fragment of the man I thought I knew. He looked at me, at the dying mother of his children, and with a chilling finality he said, "Give them to a shelter. I'm done caring." The air was sucked from the room, a shelter. He was telling me to give our children, our beautiful, innocent Lily and Tom, to a shelter, like they were unwanted pets. A black hole opened in my chest, a vortex of such profound pain and disbelief that I thought my heart might actually stop beating right then and there. He saw the horror on my face, the utter devastation, and he didn't even flinch. He just turned, his back to me, and started walking toward the front door. Every instinct screamed at me to get up, to throw myself in front of that door, to claw and fight and beg. But my legs were lead. My body was a prison. All I could do was watch him leave. He put his hand on the doorknob. This was it, the last second. My eyes darted around the room, desperate for something, anything. They landed on my phone, lying on the end table just within reach. With a surge of adrenaline I didn't know I possessed, I stretched out my trembling hand, my fingers fumbling as I unlocked it. My thumb flew across the screen, hitting a familiar name on my favorites list. I pressed the call button and put it on speaker. The phone began to ring, the tinny sound cutting through the silence. Mark paused at the door, his hand still on the knob, an annoyed look on his face. "Who are you calling, Sarah? The police? It's not illegal to leave." He didn't get it. He didn't understand. Then a cheerful, familiar voice answered on the other end. "Sarah, sweetie, how are you feeling today?" I saw Mark's shoulders tense. He slowly turned around, his face, once a mask of cold indifference, twisting into something I had never seen before, pure, unadulterated panic. The voice on the phone belonged to his mother. His mother's voice, a warm and bubbly sound that had always grated on me slightly, was now the most beautiful symphony I had ever heard. "Carol," I said, my voice deliberately weak, letting a little sob catch in my throat. "I'm so glad you called. Mark was just leaving." Mark's face went white. He dropped the suitcase with a thud and made a frantic, cutting motion across his throat with his hand. "Hang up," he mouthed, his eyes wide with fury and desperation. I ignored him, keeping my gaze locked on the ceiling as if seeking strength from above. "Leaving?" Carol chirped, oblivious. "Is he running to the store for you? What a good boy. Did you need me to pick anything up, sweetie? I was just about to head to the market." "No, he's going on a trip," I said, each word a carefully placed stone in the wall I was building around him. I could see him vibrating with rage out of the corner of my eye. "A business trip. He just packed his largest suitcase." A beat of silence on the other end of the line. Even his mother, in her world of blissful denial about her son's true character, could sense that something was wrong. "A business trip? Now?" "Sarah, he didn't mention anything to me. With you being so unwell. That doesn't seem right. Let me talk to him." This was it. The moment of truth. Mark lunged towards me, his face a grotesque mask of fury. He was going to snatch the phone. I flinched, a small involuntary whimper escaping my lips. It was quiet, but it was enough. "Sarah?" Carol's voice sharpened with concern. "What was that? Is everything all right? Mark, are you there? What is going on?" Mark froze, his hand hovering inches from my phone. He was trapped. He couldn't take the phone without a struggle she would hear, and he couldn't let me keep talking. He straightened up, ran a hand through his hair, and forced a laugh that sounded like grinding glass. He took the phone from my unresisting fingers. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice slick and smooth, a salesman closing a deal. "Sorry about that. Sarah's just a little emotional today. You know, the medication, she gets confused." He winked at me, a cruel, mocking gesture. "I was just telling her I have to fly out to Chicago for a last-minute emergency meeting. I'll only be gone a day or two, just finalizing the Peterson account. It's a huge deal, Mom, for our family's future." He was good. I had to give him that. He painted a picture of a devoted husband making a difficult sacrifice for his sick wife and children. He was banking on his mother's lifelong belief in his perfection. "Oh," Carol said, sounding relieved but still hesitant. "Oh, well, if it's for work. Still, Mark, it's such short notice, and poor Sarah sounds so distressed." "She'll be fine," Mark said quickly, already walking back towards the door, phone pressed to his ear. He was turning his back on me again, confident he had won. "My sister's gonna come stay with her. It's all arranged." A blatant, disgusting lie. My sister lived 5 states away and had no idea this was happening. I watched him, my heart hammering against my ribs. He was gonna get away with it. He was going to walk out that door, leaving his mother with a plausible story and leaving me with nothing. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a cold, hollow despair. He reached the door and put his hand on the knob again. He said his goodbyes to his mother, promising to call from the airport. "Love you too, Mom," he said, and then he ended the call. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. He turned to me, and the charming, concerned son was gone. In his place was a monster. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he hissed, stalking towards me. He tossed my phone onto the couch beside me. "You think calling my mother was going to stop me? All you did was make this worse for yourself. Now I'm not just leaving. I'm making sure you have nothing. I'll drain the accounts. I'll tell everyone you've gone crazy from the illness. Who are they going to believe, me or the dying madwoman?" He leaned down, his face inches from mine, his breath hot and sour. I didn't shrink away. I just looked into his cold, dead eyes. He expected tears. He expected begging. He got a small, sad smile instead. "You're right," I whispered hoarsely. "They might not believe me, but they don't have to." A flicker of confusion crossed his face. "What are you talking about?" I used the last of my strength to push a button on the side of my phone. A small red light, which had been glowing discreetly near the charging port, went out. "The call to your mom was just to get your attention, Mark," I said, my voice suddenly clear and steady. "But my video call to my lawyer, that's been streaming this entire conversation to his laptop for the last 10 minutes. He has the suitcase, the shelter comment, all of it. He told me to keep you talking as long as I could. I think he got everything he needs." The color drained from Mark's face so fast I thought he might faint. His jaw hung slack, his eyes darting from my face to the phone and back again, the cogs of his treacherous mind grinding to a halt. The swaggering monster from moments before evaporated, replaced by a cornered, pathetic animal. He looked at the phone in my hand like it was a venomous snake. You're lying," he stammered, but the words had no conviction. The sweat beading on his forehead told me everything I needed to know. "You can't. That's illegal. You can't record me without my consent. In this state, you only need one party's consent for a video call, Mark," I said, quoting the exact phrase my lawyer, David, had drilled into me a week ago. "And I consent. David also has my signed medical power of attorney and a full record of your recent financial transfers out of our joint accounts. He's been preparing for this." The revelation hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back, stumbling over the corner of the rug, his arms flailing for balance. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision on my part. This was a calculated counterattack. The truth was, I had seen the signs for weeks, the late-night work calls, the sudden password changes on his laptop, the emotional distance that had grown into a chasm. I wasn't just a dying wife, I was a mother, and a mother's instinct for survival, for protecting her young, is the most powerful force on earth. I had called David, our old family friend and lawyer, and confessed my fears. He had helped me put the contingency plan in place, praying we would never have to use it. "Sarah, baby, listen to me," Mark pleaded, his voice shifting into a desperate, syrupy whine. He took a step towards the couch, his hands outstretched. "I wasn't thinking. The stress... watching you... It's been so hard on me. I didn't mean any of it. Of course I'm not leaving you and the kids. I love you. I was just venting." The performance was so transparently false it was almost comical. "Done caring, Mark?" I quoted back at him, my voice flat. "Tell me to give our children to a shelter? Was that just you venting?" Just then the front door opened. I hadn't even heard the car pull up. My sister, Megan, stood in the doorway, her suitcase in hand, followed by David, who looked grimly determined. Mark spun around, his eyes wide with horror. He was well and truly trapped. "Get out of my house!" he snarled at David. "Actually," David said, stepping forward and placing a thick manila envelope on the coffee table, "it's not your house anymore. Not for the foreseeable future. That's an emergency petition for divorce, citing abandonment and emotional cruelty. It also grants Sarah sole temporary custody of the children and sole use of the marital home. A judge signed it an hour ago, pending a formal hearing. A hearing at which I will be presenting a certain video recording as evidence." Megan walked past them both and came straight to me, her face a mask of fury directed at Mark, but her hands were gentle as they squeezed my shoulder. She had taken the first flight out after I'd called her. Mark looked from the papers to David to Megan and finally to me. The fight was gone. All that was left was the hollow shell of a selfish, defeated man. He knew he had lost. He had lost his wife, his children, his home, and with the video as evidence, he was about to lose a significant portion of his money and his reputation. He didn't say another word. He just turned, grabbed his suitcase, the one he'd packed for his new life, and walked out the door, closing it softly behind him. The final, anticlimactic click echoed in the sudden, profound silence. The tension in the room broke, and a sob I hadn't realized I was holding back escaped me. Megan wrapped her arms around me, and I leaned into her, finally allowing myself to feel the grief, the relief, the sheer exhaustion. The next few months were a blur of treatments, legal proceedings, and quiet days spent with my children. Lily and Tom knew only that Daddy had gone away for a while and that Aunt Megan had come to stay. We read stories, built Lego castles that scraped the ceiling, and had picnics on the living room floor. With the poison of Mark's presence gone, the house felt lighter. I could breathe again. And a funny thing happened when I started to breathe again. My doctors, who had given me 6 months, started using words like remission and unexpected response. The new experimental treatment, the one Mark had called a waste of money, was working. The shadow wasn't gone, but it had receded. I started to have more good days than bad. I saw my kids off on their first day of school, a milestone Mark had been certain I would miss. One afternoon, sitting in the garden and watching Lily and Tom chase butterflies, I realized something. Mark didn't break me when he walked out that door. He saved me. He removed the biggest source of stress and misery from my life, freeing me up to focus all my energy on 2 things: fighting for my life and loving my children. His parting words, "I'm done caring," had been a curse he intended for me, but instead they became my liberation. He was done caring, which meant I was finally free to care for myself, and in doing so, I found a strength I never knew I had, a strength that was giving me a future he never thought I'd live to see.